So the big news of the day, one of many different things that has happened today, is that Lieutenant General Michael Flynn has been exonerated, or, well, let me be more precise. Michael Flynn's case before the federal court concerning a plea deal he did about lying to the FBI has been dropped by the prosecution and by the Justice Department. And seemingly, as of right now, Flynn will be able to, go back to regular life. And probably, in my mind, the most important thing, thank God that he is back and not behind bars. But he needs to be brought before a camera in order to share his story and the experience that he had with the Justice Department and with the way that it just decided that at some point they're going to put him behind bars simply because of guilt by association. Now, there are people who have had various different reasons for why they think that he was targeted. Here's Aaron Mate. Here's part of an interview he did with Jimmy Dore. Now, I want to use this interview to say one thing. I don't think that everyone on the left believed in Russiagate, because Mate, despite political opinions that, to put it lightly, are very different from Michael Flynn's, very different from my own, Aaron Mate did not succumb to the pressure to conform and to declare that Michael Flynn was guilty. And I think he does deserve credit. Does that make him like a great person? You should judge. I don't really like Aaron Mate in other respects, but you have to give him credit. And he along with Jimmy Dore were calling BS on this long, long, long ago.
We have the notes now. They plotted ways to avoid reminding him that perjury is a crime, so that they could basically not make him think that he was under investigation. And they have Andrew McCabe telling Flynn, "Yeah, don't worry about a lawyer. You don't need it." So it was a setup. And
so what Mate's talking about when he's saying somebody was writing notes, that was Bill Priestap, who was the officer who was above Peter Strzok at the FBI.
I hope we find out why. I think I might have said her name wrong. So the Russian-born woman's name is Svetlana.
So the woman that he's talking about now is Svetlana Lukhova. So here's a story that they came up with before.
Lukhova, and she's written about her ordeal, and it's quite interesting. She was basically used to smear Flynn, and they painted her as a honeypot and falsely accused him of having an affair. It's weird. There's a lot of shady stuff going on.
So I think now I might have misspoke too. Who interviewed Flynn? Was it McCabe or was it Strzok or both of them?
It was Strzok and one other agent.
Okay, so I did. So I was right. Okay,
yeah,
so I was right.
So this is Svetlana Lukhova, and she was an academic living in the UK and she was studying at Cambridge University in 2014. And apparently, at a certain point during the whole Russiagate investigation, Stefan Halper, who was one of the agents who was being used by the U.S. intelligence community in order to, I guess, spy on Flynn and get a lot of the dirt against him, he alleged without any proof that Svetlana Lukhova, this Russian woman, who was I think she's a British citizen now, that she was having an affair with Michael Flynn. And the truth is that there's never been any proof. So along with all the other crap that Michael Flynn has had to go through, he had someone who was a very casual acquaintance of his from his academic career not his academic career, just his visit to Cambridge University. The national security apparatus decided that, well, we're going to smear this woman as an adulterer in order to put Michael Flynn in a more compromising position. It didn't matter that there was no evidence at any point that Svetlana Lokhova was she was an agent of the Kremlin or anything. There are a lot of people, by the way, who live here in the West, especially where I live, who are former Soviet or Russian or other former Soviet republic citizens who live here who if they're reading this, can you imagine that based on your former country of citizenship and a meeting with a certain person, you would be basically portrayed as the modern equivalent of what's her name of I forgot what the girl's name is from Russia with Love, but in any case, so Xenia Onatop from Goldeneye. If you guys remember that's how ridiculous this whole investigation was.
Okay, so there it is. It's one huge shit show from start to finish, Russiagate. And as soon as anybody did a little investigation into Russiagate, they find the FBI lying all over the place, nonstop, and doing garbage like this. And then you get garbage outlets like Vox with garbage reporters, whoever wrote that, lying, just flat out lying, pushing 100% propaganda as if we're in Russia 1980. And this is a state-owned. I mean, you couldn't get state media to do a better job than the corporate media did for the last 4 years for the establishment, right? Would you agree with that? Is that hyperbolic?
No, no, because the story is, I really think it's the dumbest story of all time. It's the most ridiculous political issue I've ever seen. It's so stupid on its face, this idea that Trump and his team secretly conspire with the Kremlin. Putin has a P-tape. They're communicating via secret servers, like via Trump Tower is going to out. Which, by the way, we just learned where that one came from. That theory came from a Clinton DNC lawyer, this guy Sussman, telling Christopher Steele that he had this theory that the Russian Alpha Bank was pinging the Trump Tower, and that's how they were secretly colluding. And that's why Steele included it in his dossier. And that's why for 3 years we had supposedly respectable outlets like the New Yorker magazine devoting a huge, massive story on whether or not that was true. Slate did it as well. You have people constantly talking about all this stuff on TV as if it's serious.
So yeah, the whole this could go on and on. They talked for this is a 15-minute interview, and it was a good interview. I actually listened to it twice by mistake because I had to download it on my phone. In any case, so I think at this point, after 3 years, and after all of that grief for nothing, and Michael Flynn lost all that time. He couldn't speak in public. He had all these lawyer bills he had to go through, a lot of personal troubles. He had to switch his lawyer to Sidney Powell. You have to really feel for him. And I hope that he does come onto one of these networks. And why not make it a network like One America News, or for that matter, why not make it any of these people who are alternative media? But it should, in any case, he should be going in front of a camera anywhere he can and stating his case, because up until now, Sidney Powell has made his case to the public, his attorney, this woman who I'll pull her up in a second. Um, so she's been basically the face of the case. So sorry for that little rhyme there, but yeah, she's basically been the person who's represented him to the public. And this previous law firm, Covington, had refused to turn over to him his file. Okay, this is Sidney Powell here. Very, very unique look. And I know some people um, will try to smear it. In fact, look, this is from January. From Mother Jones, says Michael Flynn's legal strategy was based on conspiracy theories. It just backfired. Well, no, it hasn't just backfired, because what happened is this. A couple years ago, I think it was in 2017, Michael Flynn agreed to plead guilty. This was the end of 2017. And as part of that plea agreement, there would be only probation. Then at the beginning of this year, due to him switching attorneys and bringing in Sidney Powell, his case was his plea deal was violated because the Justice Department, and the FBI decided that they would press charges to the point of requesting prison time from the judge. So this was in violation of the plea deal, and therefore all bets were off. So this was not actually the case backfiring because Sidney Powell wanted the case to go forward because then there would be discovery. That would mean that there would be a trial. That would mean that the defense would have to be provided by the Justice Department with all of the exculpatory evidence, the Brady evidence that is required to be turned over to the defense in any criminal prosecution at the federal level. I think that's the way it goes. By the way, I'm not an attorney, but what happened was that the DOJ stonewalled, and so did Flynn's former law firm. And eventually, Bill Barr and John Durham, through their investigation in parallel, found that a lot of the evidence had been concealed and it was turned over to Michael Flynn. And gradually, the case began to unravel. So that was back in January, and now, you see here they just call her the MAGA lawyer, Sidney Powell, and everything. So she's been the face and mouth of the entire investigation. Okay, I guess the mouth is on the face, but or the face. She's been the face of the entire Flynn defense, and I have to say that whatever they want to say about this woman, she took a one-woman wrecking ball to the entire Department of Justice. Granted, okay, maybe it's not a one-woman wrecking ball because the Department of Justice does include some people like Attorney General Bill Barr, the person at the top, who have looked into it and have provided the true perspective of what happened, right? But without her work and all of the dedication and raising money for the defense, because attorneys don't work for free, Michael Flynn might very well have been behind bars today. But instead, in fact, it looks like she's taller than her. Maybe she's just standing on a step higher. But in any case, Sidney Powell will, I think, enter the annals of legal history. She was also the one person who exonerated, or she had the decision reversed for the Arthur Anderson case. You might remember that from the mid 90s concerning the accounting firm that had cooked the books for Enron. So it's all pretty much over for the Russiagate people. They have taken a few collars. Okay, they took Michael Cohen on charges that are not relevant to the Russia case. They took who else? Manafort. Paul Manafort went to prison for money that he did not pay taxes for when he worked for Viktor Yanukovych, the former president of Ukraine. Okay, way before he worked for Trump. Another person that they took down was Roger Stone for some other stuff that was not criminal, process crimes. George Papadopoulos was taken down for false statements to the FBI. So there is no evidence of any collusion whatsoever. And this is so Aaron Maté would not talk about this. And I think this is where his blind spot is, because Aaron Maté is a pro-Iran, he's a left-wing, pro-Palestine person. And despite the fact that he was fair in attacking the prosecution against Flynn, he would not go and disclose that one of the real reasons that Flynn was hated by the Obama Justice Department was that he was against the Iran nuclear deal, which I'm not sure what Aaron Maté's stance was on that, but I'm pretty sure he did not want it to fail because, that at least was giving the hope for non-intervention in Iran. Now, Dan Bongino, who goes into this in some detail, this is his book, Spygate. I have his other book, Exonerated. And this is a very good book on all of the Russiagate stuff. And there's other authors that are good for it. Greg Jarrett. I think Molly Hemingway also might have written a book about it. There's a few good books about it. I haven't read all of them. I think these two are the main ones that I've read. So they've come up with the conclusion, and I'm not sure this is 100% true, but it's as good a theory as any, that the reason he was pursued was because Flynn dumped on the Iran deal from the beginning.
Welcome back to Newsmax Prime. Joe Pagliarulo filling in for J.D. Hayworth. A provisional agreement has been reached between Iran and the 6 world powers involved in the nuclear negotiations. Diplomats caution that while a provisional agreement has been reached, final details are still being worked out. And those final details will be sent for review by officials of all countries involved. For more, let's turn now to the former director of Defense Intelligence Agency and the former assistant director of National Intelligence, General Michael Flynn. General, how are you?
I'm doing well, Joe. Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Hey, listen, we have to talk about this because it was 2.5 weeks ago in the parliament in Iran where they were. I'm not talking about people in the street, General. I'm talking about the actual officials in parliament were chanting death to America. Last week, the prime minister, the leader of the country, whoever he is, actually said, I want the terrorists to win against Israel. And today we're supposed to be happy about some agreement with this country. Tell me your thoughts when you heard about this.
Yeah, Joe, this is not something that's new coming out of Iran and in their leadership. And I think that this has been their tone and exactly the kinds of things that they've been saying for many, many years. So for us to even have them sitting at the same table with the United States of America is just, it's so ridiculous. It gets beyond that. And I just think it's dangerous at this stage to be able to even think that we are going to have a legitimate deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran.
General, how did we even get here? I mean, as far as I remember, Iran, they stormed our embassy. They took our hostages, held them for 444 days. They've been chanting death to America. The blood of Israel should run in the streets out to the sea. Israel should be blown off the map. Why? They're not remorseful. It isn't a different country. It's the same exact country that hated us then, hates us now. We are so against Iran that we actually backed Iraq in the war there. Why are we at the table with these guys if there's no change at all?
Yeah, I think that a lot of national security experts, a lot of experts on the region have essentially said the same thing to the administration over many months and frankly over the last couple of years to really step back and relook at what it is that we're trying to do. What is our foreign policy, not only with Iran, but also our foreign policy in the Middle East, which is completely confused at this point in time. And I will tell you, if we walk out of this session today, which it looks like, and there is a deal, a nuclear deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran, this will just be a mess for us that we're going to have to be dealing with for many, many years. And frankly, this administration knows that they're going to be leaving here in about another year, and they're going to take this mess and they're going to leave it to whoever is the next president of the United States, and what a mess it will be.
What about our friends in Israel? What does Benjamin Netanyahu think about this deal, and what happens now for our friend, we thought it was our friend, in the region?
Yeah, I don't think the Israelis like this at all. I mean, all you have to do is listen to what Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, said to our Congress not more than a couple of months back, but also just some of the things that have been coming out of Israel lately, and particularly even those Israelis who are working here in this country through their embassy to try to get a real clear message across to this administration that there's so much, they feel abandoned by the United States. I just recently visited Israel. I spoke to a number of friends there, as well as visiting other countries in the Middle East, and spoke to some friends there. And I'm going to tell you, it is a real sense of abandonment and lack of trust that we are feeling right now from those who actually have worked with us in the past. So I'm really concerned about the direction that we're going to go with this. And Iran has every intention of having a nuclear weapon. We should not kid ourselves.
I want to talk about ISIS if we can. General Senator John McCain accuses the president of failing to stop ISIS. And defense experts say we're playing defense against this enemy that continues to gain strength. What must we do to defeat ISIS, a group, by the way, that gained power because this administration prematurely, not listening to the generals on the ground, pulled our troops out of Iraq? What should we do?
Yeah, we're not playing defense. We're up in the stands at best in this stadium. Maybe we're outside of the stadium itself. I will tell you that the buddies I have in the military are so frustrated knowing that what they could be doing against this enemy is very, very vicious enemy. And I will tell you that we will pay the price for this enemy. And all you have to do is look at our great FBI director's recent remarks about ISIS in this country, in the United States of America. We are going to face this crowd for a long, long time. We have allowed them to expand, grow over the last 2-3 years. and longer because we pulled out of Iraq in 2011, and what a mistake that was.
This isn't the JV team, General. You and I both know that these guys are killing anybody and anything that's in their way. Why wouldn't we help supply those arms? What's the problem?
Yeah, I don't know the mechanical issues. I just, knowing how the Defense Department does foreign military sales, it's such an incredibly slow process,
Yeah.
and we are seeing it in spades right now, trying to get arms and ammunition into people like the Pesh or others in Iraq that have asked for. They actually haven't asked for boots. In some places,
right,
boots on the ground, but in other places, all they really want is ammunition and the arms. But I would just tell you that we also have to take another step back and we really have to look at what is it that is our policy for this entire region. It is so confusing right now. And what the American public deserve is a lot more clarity than what we have.
General Michael Flynn, great information. And I'm with you on just about everything you said. We're going to be right back after.
So that's what Flynn said. Now, here in this interview, let me find the spot here with Aaron Matei. He alleges this.
Also asked the Russian ambassador to veto a UN Security Council resolution that Obama was going to let pass for pretty much the first time. And it was a resolution being critical of Israel for its settlement building in the occupied territories. And what happened was, and this is the only documented collusion with a foreign government that we can find when it comes to the Trump team, the Israeli government and Sheldon Adelson asked the Trump team for their help in killing that resolution. And the Trump team, in collusion with Israel, tried their best to do that. And so Flynn was calling Kislyak to achieve that goal of having Russia veto that resolution. But Russia said no, and the resolution passed. But that's the documented collusion with a foreign power, and it never gets discussed because basically support for Israel and its government is bipartisan, except for that one instance where Obama let that one vote pass. And also that whole story undercuts the narrative of collusion between Trump and Russia, because we're supposed to believe that Trump and Russia were really in cahoots, not Trump and Israel.
So that's Aaron Matei's perspective, and that is really a big crux of the issue, which is Aaron Matei is not telling the real issue here. Vocally and in public, the U.S. government is very much, they talk about all the time that we have a commitment to Israel, we have all that. In reality, in some cases, okay, I'm not trying to tell people what to, whose side to take, but there are a lot of people in the State Department especially who are not for Israel, and they would certainly rather have the alliance either canceled or significantly drawn back. And that's part of the U.S. State Department, conflict within that was occurring under President Obama. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people on both the right and the left who would agree that there should be less of a U.S. alliance with Israel, right? Now, with Michael Flynn, though, there were a few things that he said in that interview with Pagliarulo, who, he's from Newsmax, that he was repeating over and over again during that period, especially about the Iran nuclear deal, also about ISIS. And he was making the Obama defense establishment look incompetent, weak, and undermining the main accomplishment of the Obama administration during that period, which was the Iran nuclear deal. And Aaron Matei should probably at some point, even if he did support the Iran nuclear deal, acknowledge that in the name of protecting that one foreign policy plank, the Obama administration, through Sally Yates and through people like Ben Rhodes and Susan Rice, determined that they have to ruin this guy's life and accuse him of a crime he didn't commit, because the fact is, like he said, it is acceptable to attack Russian collusion among the U.S. media and defense establishment. It's not as acceptable to attack U.S. collusion with Israel. And I would also like to point out that despite his personal opinion, Aaron Matei, being as he is, he's an anti-Zionist Jew, that there is a distinction here, and it's a distinction that's easy enough to understand even if you don't agree with the way the world is, which is that the US has a traditional adversarial relationship with Russia going back to at least the late 40s. The US does not have an adversarial relationship with Israel, at least at the state level. Now you can come back at me with things like about certain incidents that happen, like the USS Liberty, or those idiots of you that have not seen my arguments about 9/11, which there's a myth that Israel was complicit in that, which has not been proven. There's no evidence of it. You can come back at me, tell me all those things, all well and good, but you have to concede. Okay, even if you're a huge opponent of the U.S.-Israel relationship for whatever reason, either A, because you hate Israel, or B, because you think that this is warmongering because of Iran, or C, because you're supportive of Palestine, or D, because you think the Zios control America, whatever you want to think, the truth of the matter is that if you look at U.S. foreign policy, the relationship between the U.S. and Israel has been largely that of two countries with friendly relations in terms of the defense initiatives, and the relationship between the US and Russia has been hostile many times. So there's a huge difference between trying to coordinate moves with Israel as the incoming national security advisor and coordinating moves with Russia. So it made a little more sense to attack Michael Flynn based on a phone call he had with the Russian ambassador. It made more sense in their head because it makes more sense in reality. However, the charges themselves were completely baseless, and it's false. I think Michael Flynn deserves an apology from the entire U.S. government. It's another black mark, and I was watching. If you haven't seen the Netflix series Waco, I was watching that series. It's one more in a long series of black marks in the record of this government and the way it treats people, regardless of the motivation. So that's about it. I do want to remind you that there is a survey that I'm going to put in the description. And you can also find me at the rest of these different social media platforms: YouTube, BitChute, Minds.com, Subscribestar, and Gab. And have a great rest of your Thursday.